well. But let me take you to the Standard, and this is where I'll have a story for my panel, and I'll cross over to them shortly. At the, on the front page of the Standard, at the very top, CS lists 1,029 names behind Mau mess. Some of the people in document tabled in Parliament by Environment Ministry are directors of registered ranches who acquired huge tracts of land in the forest. And you can get better details of this story on pages 4 and 5 of the Standard. And there's an interesting title on page 4, Mau land given for free or for a goat. That's what the report says. So if you had if whoever was giving out those pieces of land asked for a goat, you give it and you get some land in exchange. And so you can get more details on page 4 and 5 of the Standard. Another story there, obviously, Jubilee fights back as Mariga appeals ban, and Anu Mombi Waigoro has a quote there, Mount Kenya waits for Uhuru's call for 2022. And the Kirinyaga governor has waded into the succession discussion, saying the region will speak in one voice and will back any candidate who supports an expanded executive. But here's the story that I want our panel to briefly share their thoughts on. A proposal by Starehe MP Njagua to cut the high number of unemployed youth by reducing the retirement age to 50 from 60. 25,000 public servants risk the sack in jobs crisis, and you can get more details about this on page 6 of the the Standard, to be more precise, where, just to give you better details, this lawmaker, that's Njagua, has introduced a private motion in the National Assembly seeking to reduce the retirement age. According to the Public Service Commission, in 2016, 31%, or at least 25,000 of civil servants were above 50 years. But if the new policy were to be implemented, the number affected will be slightly higher, considering more have attained that age by now. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think this is a good proposal to immediately create employment? And what happens to those 25,000 who are not ready to retire and now will have to retire almost by force if this motion goes through? 2243 is the SMS line. The hashtag is Daybreak. But let's get some immediate feedback now from our panel who are here with us in studio. And that will be over to you, Zinzi, for that.
All right. Thanks a lot, Wahika. So from that private motion, retirement age from 50 to 60, let's get the thoughts of Kenyans on this idea. I'll begin with you, Steve, because since you're already holding the mic, you found yourself already with it. You're an investment analyst. Tell me how perhaps this would have an effect on Kenyan homes. Because think about it, 50 to 60, these are our parents. These are people who are also primary caregivers in a normal home. What sort of implications will this have? And even as you introduce yourself, please also tell us your full names and what you also do.
My name is Steve Biko. I'm a lawyer by profession, but I'm an industrialist at the end of the day. It's an interesting move by the MP. Unfortunately, it's dead on arrival for two reasons. One, it will create a serious crisis in the pension aspect, because sending 25,000 people at the age of 50 home will actually overburden our pension system and crash it at the end of the day. We're already having a problem with the pension system as it is. So in terms of executing this will be a problem. Two, the legal ramifications will actually be too burden to this country, because none of these people have signed a contract to retire at a particular age. Enacting an act of parliament to send them home early will lead to serious court cases. It will actually cripple the country in terms of payouts and pay packages to those who are going to be affected. Right. So for me, I think Njagua is actually doing a populist move that's just trying to see people discussing, because at the end of the day, I know we want jobs. Sakaja, the senator for Nairobi, did a similar law, I think, when he was nominated MP, and I can't remember the name of the act, because it did not have any impact at the end of the day, something to do with jobs and the youth. At the end of the day, the issue that we actually need to focus on is how do we create jobs in the economy that can actually be able to go. I will expect Njagua to actually come up with something that can actually ensure that we reduce the cost of energy, to make sure that people who are in manufacturing, hospitality, hotels can have affordable energy to be able to run the businesses. I expect him to come up with a law that will actually enact the issue of corruption, because at the end of the day, corruption is the biggest challenge that we face. Corruption has actually taken 90% of the jobs away from the youth. So at the end of the day, what we are seeing just sideshows for political mileage. Right.
Odipo, just as a Kenyan, as a taxpayer, when you hear Njagua, or Member of Parliament, proposing this, do you think it's realistic? Is it doable though? Because at the end of the day, like I said, this 50 to 60 are our parents. And if you think of a common household, these are the people who are who keep the lights on. So do you think it's a viable solution to the unemployment rate amongst young people in Kenya?
Realistic and viable, probably not. Noble, yes. It's a very noble gesture. And for me, one thing I'd really emphasize on is the aspect of if the cause behind it is really to create jobs, I would go for legislations that encourage entrepreneurship.
Okay, you do more of legislation.
Yeah, right. Legislations that encourage entrepreneurship, that would push the young people towards entrepreneurship, because one person getting into entrepreneurship, chances are those are already jobs being created on the downline. But some of these jobs that are being let's say the parents, or let's say our parents, the people who are 50 and above who are retiring from, chances are you might find they're being overtaken by technology.
You're in agribusiness.
Yes, I am.
So is agribusiness, should we look at it as a retirement exit for 50 to 60-year-olds, or as an entrance for perhaps Kenya's next millionaires who could be in their 20s and 30s? Should we look at agribusiness like that? Well,
probably now that's where now the change comes in.
Yes.
In terms of people need to know the difference between farming, agriculture, and agribusiness.
Right.
All three are different. So you'll find that many people who retire get into farming. Okay? Yes. That's not agribusiness.
That's not agribusiness.
Yeah, they get into farming. Okay? For me, if someone wants to get into the space of farming, I'd encourage them to get into the space of farming, but get into agribusiness, you know, so that at the end of the day, you have something that cuts across the entire value chain. You see, farming just stops at production. That's where farming stops at. You know, someone just produces maize, produces wheat, produces chili, produces garlic. But when you get into the business side of it, then now you're getting into the manufacturing side of it.
Right.
You're getting into the processing side of it. And that's where now in the value chain, that's where now the real impact is. So for me, I wouldn't put it as a retirement plan. You know, it's not a retirement plan.
Because most people look at agribusiness as a retirement plan.
They look at farming as a retirement plan.
Yeah, now that you've told us the difference.
Yes, because now you see the biggest challenge also is people get into farming with an agribusiness expectation, but a farming mentality. The two don't match.
Wow.
You know, the two don't match.
So George, if you could also get the mic, I'm going to come back to our down place individuals right here. You wear many hats. You're an Uber driver, you're a videographer. When you hear this story of perhaps reducing our retirement age from 50 to 60, do you think that will truly help young people when it comes to our unemployment rates in this country?
Well, personally, I'll answer this from a human perspective.
Okay.
I'll just say simply, never try to take an opportunity away from anyone. I mean, when you look at, you know, reducing the retirement age from 65 to 50.
George, if you could just bring the mic closer.
From 65 to 50. I think we could do better. I mean, we shouldn't try to take opportunities away from people who obviously have the experience, expertise, and could also give us advice. So, like both of our panelists said, it would be good to look at it from a different perspective, creating employment, creating jobs or entrepreneurship, things that would help such. Yeah.
All right, Alice, let me get your thoughts. Alice, by the way, the jewelry that she has on, she makes it herself, and she's also a chef by profession. When you hear this story, because you get to interact with a lot of young people when you're giving food in offices, what do they think? What do they say when it comes to employment and whether the Kenyan government is serious about creating opportunities for young people?
Okay, I've interacted with a lot of young people in the offices, but they normally say employment is not that good. Right. Because a lot of elderly people are in the office. Yeah. And it's hard to get jobs for the young. Because they normally say they're not exiting. Yeah. Because people are going to colleges, universities, and they're coming out, they don't get jobs.
Right. Yep. Do they feel confident about tomorrow? And tomorrow could even be, let's say, 4 months from now, by the end of this year. When they talk to you, do you feel as if they have a sense of hope?
Most of them, they don't.
They don't?
Yep.
Wow. Ray, you're the Youth Affairs Secretary. Yes. Here's the irony of that statement. A lot of our CSAs and our politicians will say, you know what, young people need to be more productive. They need to seek entrepreneurship outside. Yet they're the ones who are employed in their 50s, 60s in that seat for, I don't know how long they've been with their careers, for the past, let's say, 30, 40 years. Yet they're the same ones telling young people to go seek entrepreneurship. Shouldn't be they the ones to leave and go do business?
Thank you so much, Zinzi. I'm just really happy about my colleagues who are here because one, they're very objective. I hope if Njagua is listening, is my good friend, and I want to appreciate that Njagua appreciates there is a need. So how do we address this need? That's where I think we need to look at ourselves and judge ourselves harshly. One, it is populist, and when we look at the civil service, we're talking about 25,000 jobs. And I want to tell you that over 70% of this country is young people. You've heard that the median age of a farmer in this country is over 60-year-old. If you do a median age, what are we saying? If you talk about 25,000 jobs, and you talk about the young people who are there, who are even churned from universities every year.
The median age as a farmer, because as a Kenyan it's 19.
Yeah. So the median age of a farmer in this country is 60.
Yes.
That was a discussion that the research that FAO had done. So what are we saying? You cannot talk about 25,000 spaces to address the need of youth employment. The only thing that I appreciate with what Njagua is saying, yes, there is a need. I hope we would have gone beyond the populist move that is making. It is cosmetic. It is not sustainable.
What should have Njagua done then?
What Njagua should have done, one, is understand what are some of the mechanisms that we can put in place to make sure that we absorb the majority of the young people. Right now, the government is talking about what we call succession management. I hope Njagua would have critiqued succession management and say, hey, government, I think in this succession management strategy that you have, these are the gaps. This is what we can enhance, because ask yourself, if you have a company, Zinzi, that is really doing well, like Citizen, then we say, we want all the employees here to go because we want to bring new ones. One, you will ask yourself, what about the quality of jobs? Because when you talk about 25,000 jobs, what are the quality of these jobs? Because you'll not get somebody from the streets to become a director at National Treasury. How will they understand fiscal planning of this country? So we must look at these things in terms of tiers, because even if it is your company, you cannot fire a working manager simply because somebody feels somebody has need. The question that we must ask ourselves, that person that has to be replaced, do they have the capacity? So that's why we have the succession management. Right now, as we speak, Public Service Commission is recruiting 3,000 interns. If we had a conversation and said, as members of parliament and non-state actors and all the push factors, can we make sure that there is 3,000 young people, majority of them, if not all of them? That demand would be unrealistic, but would be understandable. If these 3,000 can be absorbed into the service at the job entry level so that they grow, then what you're talking about the next generation of the public service. Then in the next 10 years also, we'll be having young people who are at higher levels. I also say one thing, that age is not a qualification to get what you want. Age is an entry point, but there has to be capacity. Lastly, there are various sectors that young people thrive in. When you talk about the fourth industrial revolution, we're talking about digital technology. Most young people, if you open that virtual space for them to earn a living, we have talent, which right now pays. We have young people who are talented, who we know very well, as men in suits, they can employ us because we are being paid peanuts. Dipo, my friend here, who was in the media, right now is in agribusiness and is making it. Can we create enabling environment so that people like them who are active can? So it's about opening the sectors and opening the spaces, looking at government, looking at it strategically with succession management plan.
A quick question for you. So
yes, Wahiga.
Jaguar's proposal won't work because there aren't enough young people to fill those slots?
Not that there aren't young people to fill.
Okay.
I believe Njagua, this should be a holistic stakeholder, a whole stakeholder approach, whereby you bring...
But should 25,000 people decide to leave the civil service, do you think there are enough qualified young people to take those jobs?
Good, Wahiga. You see, one thing that we have not interrogated, that when he talks about 25, as he told us, in terms of at what levels are we talking about this 25?
The quality of the jobs.
Yeah, the quality of the jobs. Yeah, you see, Wahiga, I cannot say that I want your job there. if I cannot even read what is going on here, the fact that I come with a nice suit and a pink tie or a red tie, that I want to be an anchor, it does not just happen like that. Do I have the capacity? So this 25,000, if we interrogate them, what are the quality and at what levels? Because we must also understand. You see, people sometimes think that, you know, government is just a huge field that we just throw areas. We have areas of expertise. We have Ministry of Environment. If we take you to a climate summit in New York to talk about climate issues, you cannot say that, you know, we had an affirmative action in our country and we were around 20,000 of us, we were injected, so we cannot really understand. Because we also understand that all these things, there is always what we call the history and how government has been working over the years. So you come in, you must understand what has been happening around this intervention for the last 10 years. You cannot just come and say, yes, I'm new, I don't know about this thing. So what I am accepting, Njagua is saying there's a need, but I believed there are critical stakeholders that he should have involved. He should have involved KEPSA. We should have involved the various sectors, Kenya Association of Manufacturers, Government of Kenya, Public Service Commission, the Public Service, and say, we have this proposal. We have studied areas within your sectors that we can absorb young people.
So who is to blame for this? Is it the government? Is it the private sector? Is it our universities?
I don't think there is anybody that we can blame, because everybody around these sectors are doing something.
Biko seems to disagree. Can you just hand over the mic?
And I appreciate what Biko said.
I know Biko seems he wants to jump on it. And you're going to have the last because we need to take a commercial break.
First and foremost, the thing about the youth being thrown, you know, you're a young person, you can do something to do with the internet. You're a young person, you know, going to farming is wrong. I'm a trained lawyer. I've never practiced. I got into business. I'm in manufacturing, I'm in media, I'm in research. When you ask us to blame, he's a government civil servant. The blame falls squarely with our parliament and our civil servants. It's time we stop pretending around and throwing the youth from one area to another area. The thing Njagua needs to do is one. He comes from a constituency that actually is very key in light industries. He needs to focus on reducing the cost of energy so that more people can be able to set up companies so that they can be able to employ more people. The young people who want to be entrepreneurs, the young people who want to be employed. The young people want to go to the office 8 to 5, the young people want to go to work at night. So the issue is to be able to create the right environment for people to do what they want to do.
Right.
And Parliament has actually failed 100%. They failed to actually interrogate and ensure that we can have the essence of reduced cost of power. That is one. Two, we are passing legislation that is actually repugnant and redundant in our society. You know, the issue of sending 25,000 people home, 3 issues that Njagua has not interrogated is one, the issue of pension. 2, the legal ramification that will come with this. 3, do we have the social amenities to handle people who are retiring at 50? What is the age when you retire at 50? What happens to you when you go home? What are you going to do for the next 20, 30 years?
How do you maintain them?
Yeah? Do we have the amenities to be able to absorb this kind of people? We don't. So the blame falls squarely on Parliament at the end of the day. And for me, any person who says, and forgive me for saying this, but I think we need to look at our society and say Parliament is the one that's actually letting us down. We have someone like Njagua who has the powers to actually demand change and actually push for it, doing something so cosmetic. It's actually very repugnant and annoying.
Right. And now we need to take a quick commercial break, because when we come back we'll dive into that conversation, which clearly has been paved way by this earlier conversation you've just had. And we want to find out from you today, so make sure you tweet us or text us. Do you have a side business? How is that going for you? How's the business been so far, especially let's say for the past 2 years, given how our political temperatures have been in this country? If you are balancing between a job and your hustle, how is that working out for you? Talk to us at Citizen TV Kenya, at Zinzi_K, at Wahiga Maura, 22422. That's our SMS line in case you want to send a longer text. We'll see you on the other side of this commercial break.